The man had survived gunfire, explosions, and missions where death waited behind every door. He had pulled brothers out of burning vehicles and whispered final prayers over fallen friends. But nothing prepared him for what he saw that winter morning on a forgotten mountain road. 2 tiny bodies dangled from a frozen fence, barely moving, their cries so weak they sounded like the wind itself was begging for mercy. Most people would have driven past, convincing themselves it was already too late. But this man stopped. And in the next few hours, an ex-Navy SEAL, broken by war and running from his own pain, would make a choice that didn't just save 2 lives. It saved his own. Stay till the end, because what those puppies gave him in return, no battlefield ever could. Ethan Cole had learned how to disappear long before he left the Navy SEALs. After 22 years of service, medals meant nothing to him anymore. They sat in a dusty box under his bed, next to folded flags and letters he couldn't bring himself to read. The real war didn't end when he came home. It followed him into sleepless nights, empty rooms, and memories that refused to stay buried. He chose the mountains because they were quiet. No crowds. No questions. Just snow, trees, and long stretches of road where his thoughts could run free, or destroy him in peace. That morning, the storm had been relentless. Snow felt like it was trying to erase the world. Ethan drove slowly, heater barely working, hands tied on the steering wheel. He wasn't going anywhere important. He rarely was. Driving helped keep the noise in his head manageable. Then he saw something ahead. At first, he thought it was trash caught on a fence. Maybe torn bags or old cloth flapping in the wind. But as he got closer, his chest tightened in a way he recognized too well. They were alive. 2 puppies, no more than a few weeks old, hung by frayed ropes tied around their tiny bodies. Their legs twitched weakly, fur soaked with snow, eyes glassy with exhaustion. One tried to whimper but barely had the strength. Someone had left them there to die. Ethan slammed the brakes and jumped out into the freezing air. His boots sank into snow as he ran toward them, heart pounding harder than it ever had in combat. He didn't hesitate. Hands shaking, fingers numb, he pulled out his knife, the same one that had saved his life overseas more times than he could count, and cut the ropes. The puppies dropped into his arms like fragile pieces of ice, barely breathing. He pressed them against his chest, instinctively shielding them from the wind, whispering words he didn't realize he still remembered. "You're okay. I've got you. I won't leave you." But part of him wasn't sure that was true. Because as he rushed back to his truck, another voice whispered in his head, the same voice that had haunted him for years. Why save them when you couldn't save everyone else? He drove like a man possessed, heater blasting, jacket wrapped around the puppies. One was completely limp. The other clung weakly to his sleeve, as if it already knew he was the only thing standing between life and death. Ethan's hands trembled, not from the cold, but from something deeper. Something human. Something he'd buried under discipline and survival. By the time he reached the small-town vet clinic, he was praying again for the first time in years. The vet didn't sugarcoat it. "They're severely hypothermic. Malnourished. If you'd been 10 minutes later..." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Ethan sat alone in the waiting room, snow melting off his boots, staring at his hands. These hands had carried wounded men, had ended lives, had followed orders without question. Now they were empty. And he was terrified. Hours passed. Each tick of the clock felt louder than gunfire. When the vet finally returned, her expression softened. "They're fighters," she said. "Both of them." Something inside Ethan cracked open. He took them home that night. He told himself it was temporary. Just until they were strong enough. That's what he said out loud. But the truth was different. The puppies needed round-the-clock care. Feeding every few hours. Warming blankets. Gentle reassurance. Ethan set alarms through the night, waking up to tiny whimpers instead of nightmares. And slowly, something changed. For the first time since leaving the military, he had a reason to get out of bed that wasn't survival, but love. He named them Ghost and Ranger. Ghost was quiet, observant, always watching Ethan like he was trying to understand him. Ranger was energetic despite his rough start, following Ethan everywhere, tail wagging like every moment was a gift. Days turned into weeks. The snow melted. The puppies grew stronger. And without realizing it, Ethan started talking again, not to himself, but to them. He told them stories he never told another soul. About his brothers. About the guilt. About the night he came home alone. They listened. They didn't judge. They didn't ask him to be strong. They just stayed. One night, months later, Ethan woke up from a nightmare, breath ragged, heart racing. Before the panic could take over, he felt warmth. Two bodies pressed against him. Two steady heartbeats reminding him he wasn't alone anymore. He cried then. Quietly. Completely. Spring arrived, painting the mountains green. Ghost and Ranger ran freely through the fields, healthy and full of life. People in town noticed the change in Ethan too. He smiled now. He spoke. He volunteered at the shelter, helping other abandoned animals find homes. One afternoon, standing in the same place where he had found them months earlier, Ethan looked at the fence. The ropes were gone. The snow had melted. But the memory remained. He realized something then. He hadn't just saved two puppies from dying in the cold. They had saved him from freezing inside. Sometimes, healing doesn't come from therapy rooms or medals or applause. Sometimes it comes in the form of two broken souls who need you as much as you need them. And sometimes, the smallest lives change us forever. If this story touched your heart, remember this. You don't have to save the whole world to matter. Sometimes, saving one life, human or animal, is enough to bring your own heart back to life.